Imagine a thin line of light arcing across the night sky, silent, precise, and relentless, carrying more than data, carrying a promise that humanity refuses to stand still. From the very first second, this story is not really about internet speeds or satellites spinning above the clouds, but about a deeper question that has haunted civilization for centuries. How far are we willing to go to secure our future? Every generation faces a moment when comfort tempts it to stop pushing forward, and every generation needs a reminder that progress is born from daring to attempt what seems unreasonable. Starlink exists inside that tension, operating quietly above Earth while fueling a dream that stretches millions of miles beyond it. And that dream asks us to look up and decide whether we will remain observers of the universe or active participants in shaping it. At its surface, Starlink looks practical, almost mundane. A network designed to connect rural towns, remote islands, moving ships, and isolated research stations that traditional infrastructure left behind. Yet beneath that practical shell lives a radical idea, one that reframes how technology, commerce, and exploration can work together instead of competing for attention. The satellites form a living grid around the planet, generating revenue, not as an end goal, but as a means, transforming everyday subscriptions into momentum for something vastly larger. This is where the philosophy inspired by Elon Musk becomes visible. The belief that solving immediate human problems and pursuing long-term survival are not opposing missions, but two sides of the same equation. Every connection established on Earth quietly strengthens the capacity to reach beyond Earth, linking ordinary daily life to extraordinary ambition. Human history shows that exploration has always depended on stable systems at home. Ships crossed oceans because ports, trade, and industry supported them. Space is no different, except the distances are unforgiving and the margins for error are razor-thin. Deep space exploration demands not only courage, but sustained resources, patient engineering, and a financial backbone that does not collapse under political cycles or short-term thinking. Starlink's revenue provides that backbone, flowing steadily from millions of users who may never think about Mars when they check their email or stream a video. Their participation turns exploration into a collective act, where progress is funded not by a single government decision, but by a distributed global network choosing connection over isolation. The power of this model lies in its subtlety. There is no dramatic announcement every time a satellite launches that says it will help build a city on another planet. Instead, progress accumulates quietly, launch after launch, subscription after subscription, innovation after innovation. This quiet accumulation mirrors how real transformation happens, not through a single heroic moment, but through consistent effort applied over time. The funds generated support reusable rockets, advanced propulsion research, life support systems, and the experimental technologies required to survive in an environment where Earth offers no safety net. In this way, Starlink becomes a bridge between the present and a future that still feels like science fiction, reminding us that the path to distant worlds is paved with practical decisions made today. There is also a philosophical challenge embedded in this system, one that invites viewers to rethink the purpose of technology itself. Too often, innovation is framed as a race for profit or dominance, stripped of meaning beyond market share. Starlink reframes that narrative by tying utility to destiny, suggesting that technology can be both useful now and vital later. It asks a quiet but persistent question. If we have the tools to secure humanity's long-term survival, do we have the responsibility to use them? This question adds emotional weight to something as simple as an internet subscription, turning it into a small vote for exploration, resilience, and hope. As the satellites continue to multiply, so does the sense that something larger is unfolding beyond headlines and quarterly reports. Each orbital adjustment, each software update, each successful landing of a reusable booster feeds into a system designed for endurance. Mars is not a marketing slogan in this vision. It is a destination that requires discipline, sacrifice, and unwavering focus. Starlink's role is to reduce fragility, to create a revenue stream resilient enough to weather setbacks and failures that are inevitable when attempting the unprecedented. In doing so, it demonstrates a lesson that applies far beyond spaceflight, that sustainable progress depends on structures built to last, rather than excitement built to fade. This perspective invites the audience to see themselves as participants rather than spectators. The future is not shaped only by astronauts and engineers, but by countless individuals whose everyday choices support ambitious systems. When people connect through Starlink, they are not just accessing information, they are reinforcing an ecosystem that believes humanity should not place all its hopes on a single planet. That belief carries urgency, especially in a world facing environmental strain, resource challenges, and uncertainty. The satellites overhead become symbols of preparedness, of a civilization choosing to expand its options instead of narrowing them. In this opening movement of the story, the vision remains hopeful, almost calm. Yet beneath it lies an undercurrent of urgency that has not fully revealed itself. The question is no longer whether Starlink can fund exploration, but whether humanity will recognize the significance of that funding before circumstances force the issue. The countdown has already started. As this system grows stronger, the tone of the story begins to shift, because every ambitious vision eventually reaches a moment where optimism is tested by reality. Space is not romantic when you are forced to confront its hostility, its silence, and its indifference to human dreams. Behind every successful launch lies a graveyard of failed ideas, broken prototypes, and near disasters that never make it into highlight reels. The suspense emerges here, in the space between what is promised and what is possible, where even the most confident plans can unravel under pressure. Starlink's steady flow of revenue becomes most critical at this stage, not during moments of triumph, but during moments of doubt, when persistence is the only thing separating progress from retreat. Deep space exploration is a long game played against time, physics, and human patience. Developing spacecraft capable of carrying humans to Mars requires years of iteration, massive testing campaigns, and a willingness to accept losses as tuition for learning. Traditional funding models struggle in this environment because they demand predictable outcomes and immediate justification. Starlink changes the equation by introducing a self-sustaining engine that continues to operate regardless of headlines or political shifts. Each month it generates resources that quietly absorb the shock of failed tests and unexpected delays, allowing engineers to return to the drawing board instead of abandoning the mission. This resilience is not glamorous, but it is essential, and it is where the true tension of the story lives. There is a moment in every grand endeavor when the easy arguments run out. Early excitement fades, critics grow louder, and the question shifts from "can we do this?" to "should we keep going?" Mars, with its thin atmosphere and unforgiving terrain, forces that question into sharp focus. The cost is enormous, the risks are real, and the payoff feels distant. Yet this is precisely where the philosophy inspired by Elon Musk asserts itself most clearly: the belief that the long-term survival of humanity outweighs short-term discomfort. Starlink's existence ensures that this belief is not just an idea, but a funded commitment, one that can withstand skepticism without collapsing under it. Suspense deepens when you consider what failure would mean. If humanity retreats from the challenge of becoming multiplanetary, it sends a message about its willingness to confront existential risk. Staying confined to Earth leaves civilization vulnerable to threats beyond any single nation's control, from planetary impacts to unforeseen cosmic events. Starlink's revenue stream quietly counters this vulnerability by enabling continuous development, even when progress seems invisible. The satellites above become guardians of momentum, preventing stagnation during periods when results are slow and uncertainty is high. This phase of the journey forces a re-evaluation of success itself. Success is no longer defined by immediate milestones, but by sustained capability. The ability to keep building, testing, and improving despite setbacks becomes the real achievement. Starlink funds the kind of patient engineering that does not seek applause but durability. Life support systems must work not once but for months. Propulsion systems must perform consistently, not just spectacularly. Communication networks must remain reliable across millions of miles. Each of these requirements demands investment long before they deliver visible rewards, and Starlink's steady income makes that investment possible. There is also a human dimension to this suspense that often goes unnoticed. Engineers, scientists, and technicians are not immune to doubt. They carry the weight of knowing that their work could determine whether humans ever step onto another planet. Stable funding does more than buy hardware. It buys psychological safety, the freedom to focus deeply without the constant fear that the project will be cancelled. Starlink provides that stability, creating an environment where bold ideas can survive long enough to be tested honestly. In this way, revenue transforms into confidence, and confidence transforms into innovation. As the story moves through this uncertain middle, the contrast between Earth and Mars becomes sharper. On Earth, Starlink's impact is immediate and tangible, connecting communities and enabling economic growth. On Mars, the impact is abstract, delayed, and fraught with risk. Yet the two are inseparably linked. Every successful connection on Earth reinforces the infrastructure that makes Mars reachable. This connection adds emotional tension, because it reveals how fragile the chain really is. Remove one link, and the entire vision weakens. Maintain it, and the future remains open. The suspense is not built on fear alone, but on responsibility. Humanity now possesses the tools to extend its presence beyond its home planet. But possessing tools is not the same as using them wisely. Starlink represents a decision to act rather than wait, to invest rather than hesitate. The satellites do not guarantee success, but they guarantee effort, and effort is the only currency accepted by the universe. In this middle chapter, the audience is invited to sit with uncertainty, to understand that progress is rarely linear, and that the most important work often happens when applause is absent. By the end of this movement, the question lingers in the air, unresolved and heavy. Will this sustained effort be enough to carry humans across the void? Or will doubt and distraction pull the vision apart before it reaches maturity? The answer is not yet written, but the mechanism to pursue it is already in motion, orbiting Earth in quiet formation, waiting for the future to catch up. The final movement of this story is not about rockets lifting off or footprints pressed into Martian soil, but about perspective, because every great leap forward begins with a shift in how humanity sees itself. When the noise fades and the suspense settles into clarity, what remains is a realization that Starlink is less about satellites and more about alignment, aligning daily human activity with a future that refuses to be small. Each connection made on Earth represents a quiet decision to participate in something enduring, a collective agreement that survival, curiosity, and progress are worth investing in, even when the rewards are distant. This realization reframes the entire journey, turning what once seemed like an abstract ambition into a shared responsibility that spans continents and generations. Mars, in this context, becomes more than a destination. It becomes a mirror reflecting humanity's willingness to think beyond immediate comfort. The systems being built today are not optimized for spectacle, but for continuity, for the ability to function year after year in an environment that offers no forgiveness for shortcuts. Starlink's role in this effort is to ensure that continuity exists, that exploration does not flicker on and off with public attention, but burns steadily, like a long-term commitment. This steady burn is what allows dreams to mature into plans and plans into reality. It is the difference between imagining a future and actually arriving in it. There is a deeper philosophical layer here that reaches beyond space exploration itself. Throughout history, civilizations that invested only in short-term gains eventually collapsed under the weight of their own limitations. Those that dared to think long-term built legacies that outlived them. Starlink represents a modern expression of this ancient truth, using advanced technology to solve present needs while quietly underwriting future survival. The internet connections it provides today help people learn, trade, communicate, and innovate, while the revenue they generate pushes the boundary of where human life might exist tomorrow. This dual purpose gives meaning to progress, anchoring it in both utility and vision. The influence of Elon Musk is felt most strongly here, not as a personality, but as a mindset that refuses to separate ambition from responsibility. The idea that humanity should become a multi-planet species is not framed as escapism, but as risk management, a recognition that putting all of civilization's hopes on a single planet is an unnecessary gamble. Starlink turns this philosophy into infrastructure, into something tangible that operates regardless of whether people are thinking about Mars on any given day. It works in the background, patient and persistent, much like the future itself. As the narrative resolves, the emotional weight shifts from uncertainty to agency. The question is no longer whether such a future is possible, but whether enough people will choose to support it consistently. The beauty of Starlink's model is that it lowers the barrier to participation. You do not need to be an astronaut, an engineer, or a policymaker to contribute. Participation happens through ordinary actions that collectively sustain extraordinary goals. This democratization of exploration transforms space from a distant spectacle into a shared endeavor, where progress is powered by many rather than a few. Looking ahead, the vision extends beyond Mars to a broader understanding of humanity's place in the universe. Becoming interplanetary is not about abandoning Earth, but about appreciating it enough to protect the species that calls it home. The technologies developed through this process often return benefits to Earth, improving efficiency, resilience, and understanding. Starlink exemplifies this cycle, creating value in both directions, strengthening life on Earth while preparing for life beyond it. This reciprocal relationship adds depth to the mission, showing that exploration and stewardship are not opposing forces, but complementary ones. In the end, the satellites overhead are reminders that the future is built incrementally, through systems designed to outlast individual lifetimes. They represent a quiet confidence that humanity can learn, adapt, and expand without losing its sense of purpose. The story comes full circle here, returning to the original question of how far we are willing to go to secure our future. The answer is written not in grand speeches, but in sustained effort, in the willingness to fund, build, and refine technologies that may not pay off immediately, but matter profoundly in the long run. As viewers absorb this perspective, they are left with a sense of connection that transcends geography and time. The night sky no longer feels empty, but purposeful, filled with motion and intention. Starlink's role in SpaceX's Mars mission becomes a symbol of what is possible when practicality and vision move in the same direction. It shows that the path to other worlds begins with decisions made here and now, guided by patience, courage, and an unwavering belief in humanity's capacity to grow. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.